Welcome to Defying the Odds podcast, the podcast where grit, resilience, and drive take center stage. I am Leonovsky, political refugee from the Soviet Union, and now professor of entrepreneurship.
I'm Victor Salcida, a formerly incarcerated individual turned software engineer and social entrepreneur on a mission to empower justice-impacted individuals through technology, education, and systemic change.
In 2018, I was fortunate to have Victor as one of my students while he was incarcerated. Fast forward, we're both free to find opportunities, challenge stereotypes as business partners, community leaders, and co-anchors of this life-changing podcast, where we dive deep into powerful conversations with guests who have shattered their own barriers and defied their own odds.
On each episode, we're here to bring you not just stories, but strategies, real tools to help you take on challenges in life, business, and beyond.
So tune in, be inspired, and get ready to defy your own odds.
This is Defying the Odds podcast, where no challenge is too great to conquer.
Let's go. Yo, what's up, Victor?
Hey, good to see you, brother.
Hey. So, Victor, how have you been defying the odds since the last time we talked?
Oh, man, I love circling back to this question every episode. But one, I was thinking about it this morning, and I think it happened just a few days ago. I was going out to a workout really early in the morning. It was raining that morning. Out in Rat City. It's in like the White Center area of Washington in Seattle, and nobody was there. I was like, where's everyone at? And usually there's at least a group of 4 or 5 people, and nobody was there. Looked on Slack, didn't see any like messages, so I had to think about what I wanted to do at that moment. I could have did something there, but it looked like a sketchy area. So I really didn't want to work out by myself in the area just because of the activity that was going on. So I decided against that, and I was driving back home, and I still had a choice. I could either went back home, try to go for a run later when it wasn't raining, or I could go find another workout location. So I decided to go to Magnuson Park and have a workout over there, met the guys, and think I ended up doing the last like 15 or 20 minutes or so. But I defied the odds by showing up and not, going back home and just, going back to where it was comfortable. It was still raining. Still did get a good workout for those 20 minutes. And we had some amazing coffee and donuts after. So it was a good way that I defied the odds. How about you, Leo? Share a story with us.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's been an interesting week. I think one of the ways that I have defied the odds is with this podcast. We trying to get the and you too, trying to get the last episode out. When you called me,
man,
and you're like,
why are you
hey,
bringing
man.
that up? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?
No, because I think that shows grit, man. That
sure.
shows resilience, bro. Like, I mean, this is your story, not mine. But when you called me and you said, "Hey, I lost the edit. I lost the edit. You made a mistake and deleted the thing." God, I'm sure everyone on the podcast have had something like that happen when you wrote an email, a long email, or a work project, and somehow you hit the wrong button, and boom, it's gone. And then what do you do with that? How do you deal with setbacks, right? How do you deal with challenges? And I think watching you actually was really, really impressive. Because you kind of, what, I'm just gonna go back. I just need a little time. I'll get over it, and I'll get it done. And I think for me, that was a really big lesson of seeing how to defy the odds.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways I've defied the odds this week is by getting our friend Jordan on board. I think one of the things we talk about on this podcast is, you don't want to do things alone. Alone does not work. Teamwork is really the key. Community is really the key. These are a common threads of how to defy the odds. And so bringing in another person into our group, we have a strong group of five people right now, maybe growing stronger. And by dividing and creating new skills and bringing people together, which is one of my skills, we're able to defy the odds and really build this into a real concern. So today I am really excited for this episode because our guest is Jesse Tam. I have known Jesse for, we were trying to remember for at least 18 years. He's been one of my whetstone. For those of you who just tuning in and don't know what whetstone is, it's our little shorthand for mentor, someone who sharpens us as blades. And so he's been one of my role models. So let me introduce Jesse, and then we'll get some real inspiration on what does it take to defy the odds. Welcome, Jesse.
Good morning, Leo and Victor. Yes.
Hey, morning, Jesse.
Morning. So as I was saying, Jesse Tam is a entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a world changer, and a banker. And he has an amazing story, which we'll hear about immigration, his immigrant story, which I feel very connected to, being an immigrant myself. And he is really someone who loves this country for the diversity, the uniqueness, the cooperation and connection that it allows people to have. He has been born into banking. His parents, grandparents, and he himself has been in the family of bankers from Hong Kong. And in 1971, he came here with a really interesting immigrant story, which we will hear. Definitely defied the odds. And knowing him, he will blow you away with some of the takeaways for your life. Right now, he is forming his, I believe, fourth community bank that he has built over the years, called United Diversity Bank. And he has some really interesting goals and objectives with this one. And I'm looking forward to hearing from him. He is married, he has 2 sons and 1.5 grandkids. So one there, one on the way. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you, Leo. Yes, very nice.
All right. Well, yeah. So we're going to ask you the question we always ask. The first question is, how do you define defying the odds? What does that mean to you?
Well, in my humble opinion, defying the odds is practically what life is about. Everything we see in the future is unknown to us, and to have the ability to see through that with the visions and to build the internal confidence to move forward. And time after time, I've been telling people, let's go through the tunnel together. And 90% of the people will look at the tunnel and say, why am I going to the dark hole? And the others, very small percentage, say, keep working on it. I already see the other end of the tunnel. And so for those who believe in it, and for those who work on it, all of a sudden, after a long period of time, you see the small hole, the light coming through, and you work on it a little bit more, and the light getting bigger and bigger. And next thing you know is sunshine and pasture and all over fresh air and wonderful experience to come along. And you look around, who's next to you? Those are the few wonderful moments in life we're all waiting for, all the times.
Love that. Well, we always are looking for that light of the end of the tunnel. I know I was, I think we talked about a little bit about my backstory of coming from prison, but always looking forward to that day of freedom, toward, to that day of light. So I totally understand that that analogy there.
Yeah, and for me, I love hearing you. First of all, Victor, you see why Jesse is a mentor, right? Right. And what strikes me from that definition, which I love, is this ideal of the tunnel, is who is with you at the end of the journey is most important. So building that team and knowing that there are people who will turn away, and that's okay. But the idea is to build that team to allow you to do that is going to be the key. Yeah.
We grew up in life. We don't know everything. We're trying to learn it through formal education, and we learn it through experiences in life. And we always ask people, "What's next? What do you see next? How do you see the outcome might be? What's going on?" And unfortunately, you don't get the answer, and majority answer you will think is not known to you or never will come true. But even with that, we have to believe in the visions and positive thinking, and and time after time it works for me really well. Believe in it, no matter what the challenges might be seem to be ahead. With a smile. Um, Easy to say, very difficult to do, but some of us keep doing it.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for sharing that with us, Jesse. All right. Well, I want to move on to the next question and ask you, just kind of for our listeners, learn more about your story and how you defied the odds.
Well, I would say in the early part of my life, I was born in Hong Kong. It's a big city with at that time about 7-8 million people there, and I learned that I'm in a very complicated environment. There are certain things I could learn from, but there's so much challenges and restrictions that without extreme efforts, well, I could never get through those restrictions and barriers. So one of the worst thing bothered me the most when at that time was I was born in a country without the citizenship. Hong Kong was a colony. I was holding a UK passport. Then I realized my UK passport wasn't the same as UK passport with the people from UK. Then I told myself, Jesse, you got to find yourself a place that you can call your home country. You can find a place that you can build a home that you can be proud of, that you can live and you can build your life, build your family along the way. And then part of me also telling me you live in one little city, so small compared to the rest of the world. You got to connect with the outside of the world. So deep inside, I have a dream. My dream was being a world citizen. A world citizen, I can go anywhere, anytime I want to, talk to everybody, anybody I could talk to build relationship with, be part of this world, and the world be part of me. Um, I knew that was difficult, and maybe even impossible, but that has always been my life. So I came to this country at 17 years old with a backpack, $300 in my pocket, and I came to the big city of San Francisco. The next thing I knew, I went to Idaho for a small town with 10,000 people to learn about America from the ground up. This is how I started my life in this country. Throughout the years, I got my education. I was fortunate to finish school with my hard work, able to find a good person who become my wife. Now we'll be married for 48 years. Build a family. Bought our own house in the early years at 23 years old, and And from that onward, I started to build my career, my family. And 1980, I came to Seattle, continues my banking. My banking career started in Boise, Idaho, in the bottom of the mailroom, where I found myself was very difficult to tell my parents what did I do after 4 years of college. Now I'm working for the mailroom, report to the guy who was semi-disabled, a very nice gentleman. He taught me a lot. Um, then I realized the only one I can continue to learn from is my imaginative ways going forward. So one of the things I did in the mailroom was to memorize every person name in the whole entire bank buildings. I wanted to know them. I wanted them to recognize how important their names to them. And then a few weeks later, and I heard everybody asking, how could this guy know all our names and none of us know his name? So from that point onward, I realized so important. Um, they need to know me. I need to know them. Then I learned something from people. Say, is not what you know, is who you know. Then I slapped myself on that. It's not what I know, but what's good for what I know. More important, the second half was, is not what I know, is what they know and how they recognize my value for them. So by sharing the value, I became part of them in many ways, personally and professionally, and that's how I built my foundation of my life and my career going forward. Many years later, well, actually 18 years later, I opened my first bank in downtown Seattle as a senior founder of the bank. And then a few years later, I became a CEO of my second bank. And then a few more years later, I became chairman and president and CEO of my third bank. Um, but through all those years was very difficult. It wasn't as easy as it seemed to be because most people only know about banking through the teller cage or ATM, maybe getting the SBA small business loan. But in reality, they're so complicated behind the scene. And this country and the banking industry are in a progressive way in many, many channels and changing constantly. And the change scare people away. And in my own personal dream, the more changes they have, the more reason I live on to take on those challenges. So after I retired 2009, after the financial crisis, I didn't think I would go back into banking. But most recently, I had the opportunity to learn that the banking world changed a lot, particularly for Washington State, and the regulation have changed. The timing of things have changed, and multiple factors come together. And I also learned about the growing part of the diversity in this country, particularly Washington State. I wanted to have the opportunity to create a financial institution to serve the diverse community in this area. They are the very new treasures for this country. They bring in talents, education, values to this country. Time after time, they survive in their own pockets, all over the state, all over the region. We want to find some way to unite them. There are some other ways, like politically or religiously, but I happen to be coming from the financial background, and I know how important the financial value, financial fuel can help this group of people, and also finding a way to create a platform that can combine their talents and their knowledge and skill to grow into a financial institution to help them economically and also will help the region, the state, um, in any way to continue to grow and more stabilized going forward. That's been a challenge for a lot of other people. not just myself.
Yeah, what a story, right, Victor? There's so much here, Jesse. There's so much here, and I want to dive just a little bit more into your story. And then, so a couple of thoughts that really jumped out at me from what you're saying is one is your early decision in your life to become a world citizen. You realized that you had an opportunity. You realized that you had an opportunity with the fact that you had a British passport. By the way, I checked the numbers. There were 3.9 million people in Hong Kong in 1971. It is 8 million people now. So it was a much smaller city back then. But the what I heard is you took the challenge as a 17-year-old coming here, and that in itself, having been myself an immigrant, is a challenge. I was 12 years old when I came here. My parents brought me here, so I was actually protected. You came in with $300 and a lot of expectations, I'm sure, from your family, but you put yourself through college, and your story of remembering people's names is one of my favorite stories. That's why when I invite you to teach at my to guest teach at my classes, when I was a full-time professor, I love hearing that story, because my motto, and those people who know me know my motto, and that is, your network is your net worth. And the way you took a mailroom job and turned it into an opportunity where you memorize the names of everyone, but more importantly, to fill the story, right, you would go up to them. This was before internet. There was before email, right? You would come over there with the cart, right, with the mail, and say, "Hello, Mr. Jackson. Here's your mail. Hello, John. Here's your mail." And people were literally, within 2 weeks, they're like, "He knows me. He must be important, right? If they know my name." And so literally he got promoted almost immediately, because they said, "Who is this guy who knows everybody's name?" And that lesson, if you want to defy the odds, one of the simplest things to do is to remember people's names. I heard one time said that the most important word, what is the most important word in any language? And that is that person's name. That person's name is the most important word for them in their language. Right, Victor?
Yes.
Right. And so learning people's names is absolutely key. The other thing that I learned from what you were saying to me is that nothing is easy. Right. Here's your story. It sounds really beautiful. 4 banks, career in banking, long marriage. Everything is beautiful, right? We talk about kind of like the Instagram perfect or Facebook perfect life, but the truth is that that's not the case. And then we're going to talk about some of the challenges you've overcome. But the idea is life is not easy, and moving through it is the key to success. And I love that you also mentioned timing and diversity. So you said after 2008, you're like, "I'm done with banking," but then you saw another opportunity, and here you are building your 4th bank. So I want to take a break right now. Victor, before we do, any thoughts from your side?
What stood out to me from what Jesse was sharing was, just the importance of, I think, relationships. I think, we've seen that time and time again. Even when he was coming to the U.S., he seen the importance of what like community was, and he was, searching for that and continued to search for that, throughout his life, and seeing how important relationships were in that process. So I do, as you mentioned, the network is your net worth. I do see the value in that, but more importantly, I think like just being able to be adaptive. He didn't have like a clear vision of where he wanted his life to end up when he came to America, but I think like things have changed. He learned to be adaptive, even with the bank regulations and things that he currently faces. It seems like he still has to defy the odds. And I love just the kind of analogy of the tunnel at the beginning. when he was kind of explaining what he thought Defying the Odds meant to us, because he seems to be that light for many people and just a whetstone for many. So, but it is also kind of what stems from the importance of relationships that he has for just, people in general in the world. He's a really good individual at heart. This is my first time meeting Jesse, and I could tell that from the first time that I met.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so when we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Jesse about the challenges he talked about and some of the ways that he really dealt with those real big setbacks, and then what we can learn from it. So we'll be back in just a second. All right, so Jesse, you talked about a rich life with lots of ups and downs. Talk to us about some of the hardest times that you've gone through in your life, and what contributed to you defying the odds there, or if you had a setback that took you out of the game for a while, what that was and what you're learning from it. So that's the question about my question to you is about the challenges that specifically that you really had to overcome.
Well, I earlier mentioned that being immigrants, and I can see you can see and associate with that. Being an immigrant, you have to learn not only languages and culture, but in the real sense is how do you become a part of a new environment, a new country that you were not born into. And how do you define yourself internally to become part of them without creating that barrier which many immigrants actually build inside themselves. The immigrants, or we, are our own worst enemies. Time after time say, that's not what I was told, not what I was brought up to be, and they all seem to agree on it, but they disagree with me. Now, how do you overcome those differences? And I ask that question to myself time after time. I say, if I don't overcome those differences myself, I can never be part of them, and they'll never be part of me. So I have to find some way to overcome that. The racial differences, the language barrier, the lifestyle, the value, acceptance between the different people are a constant challenge to every one of us. And that was part of my challenge as well. So I told myself, Jesse, there's a lot to learn. Well, how do you learn it? I had the opportunity to find that, became a mentor at Seattle University. Well, what was I supposed to do as a mentor? I wasn't a college professor. I got a master's degree. I got some education experiences. What do I tell people? That actually gave me that great opportunity to learn. The more you teach, the more you learn. The more you give, the more you have. I was able to sit there and listen to questions they asked me. Gave me that great opportunity to think about those questions. And then by articulating the answers to them was the greatest educations. I gave it to myself, analyzing things from my own personal angle to benefit the others who reverse that simultaneously or instantly, telling me, Jesse, you are doing the right thing or you are not doing the right thing. And the 32 years I spent with Seattle U, many of those now today are CEO of their own company, very successful company leaders all over the world. And those 30 some years gave me tremendous amount of opportunity to digest information on a very personal basis, understanding how important it is to others and obviously to myself to find that check and balance between people, especially when many students come from many different parts of the world. So I always enjoy people. If you are not a good student or learner, try to be a teacher, try to be a mentor.
I think that's what a great concept.
You might just become a great student along the way.
That's great. So yeah, one thing that I did hear was just seemed like the challenge of identity, trying to find and fit in to something that's completely new to you, and that could have its own barriers. Obviously the cultural differences that you had mentioned, the language barrier that comes along with it, like these all present their own sets of challenges, but you already had your mindset to like, hey, I'm gonna defy these odds. I'm gonna find out how to make this work. I'm gonna find out how to stand out from the rest. And I do love your perseverance and just how you approach this, because not everybody has this mindset. So I love that you're sharing with our listeners just the type of mindset that you have to have going into these situations. But do also note that these are challenges. These are challenges that you had to face and overcome, but you pushed through it. And yeah, it's really, really just honorable what you're able to do. But how does that how does it just being an immigrant with like within the banking industry? You'd assume that is there like a lot of people of your kind in there? Do you feel like you're just kind of
so yeah, that's the question. Like, how do you I think that's a great question, Victor. How does it being, especially in the 1980s in banking, I doubt that being from Hong Kong with English as a second language, you becoming the president of the bank. Talk to me about that racial diversity and the challenge of being the only non-white man in the room, I'm assuming.
I remember briefly at that time, obviously, there are very few minority bank presidents or particular Asian bank presidents in Washington State. And but I could not allow that to become my face. In fact, that need to be removed. Time after time, I told myself, Jesse, if you carry that face out there and telling everybody you're the only, or maybe a couple Asians bank presidents among hundreds of other bank presidents around, if you carry that on your face, you isolate yourself. So first thing I have to do before I walk into any banking conferences or any large group of gathering, first thing I have to tell myself, please stop thinking of yourself being a minority or different than anyone else. You are just part of them. Stay focused. Stay focused on what the mission is, and using the focus of the mission to enhance the motivations and the ability to connect and to build those relationships and able to create mutual acceptance. Time after time, acceptance is not always mutual. You try to accept others and they don't always accept you. Or in some cases, people accept you, you didn't know how to reciprocate. So I had to learn that. I had to learn that in a very subtle way, how to create that connections on a very personal level. And then, but honestly, when I go in for the financial crisis time, when the bank regulators were going all over the country with the agenda to closing banks down, um, with the agenda to minimize the number of banks in the country from 15,000 plus to today down to about 4,700 banks in the United States. That gone through a long period of time, but the mission was close down 5 to 10,000 banks. That was their job. And guess who were the top target on that? Minority banks. And it's very, very obvious. And when you are weak, you don't have a strong backing, you become the target of the process of elimination. That happens in the history of humanity, and definitely in the history of the banking world. Only the strong can survive, but strength is not always based on dollar and cents. It's based on a lot of other factors beyond how much do you have. How about how much ability for you to carry on, the survival ability to overcome the odds by negotiation, by overcome the basic challenges and create new channels, innovative ideas, to make sure whatever you learn is not the end of it. Whatever we learn is just the beginning of what else we're going to learn.
Can you give a specific example? It sounds like 2008 was a really big year in learning for you because they were trying to close down the banks, and that the immigrant banks were actually targeted, while you still had these huge, too big to fail banks that survived. So can you talk about like what kind of lessons or anything that really kind of got you through that really dark period?
It was a very challenging time. Never happened in the past, and I hope it will never happen again. And most people in this country did not know that, except people in the banking community, understanding that cycle of life. During the time, the United States as a country were going through very challenging financial difficulties. And there was discussions how the banking industry can help to work out the crisis during the age. And it's a reaction of federal government policies to provide substantial mortgage ability for people who don't have the ability or capacity to borrow money to own a home. And that time, people can buy home and borrow money up to the value more than the house value. In the other words, if you buy a home at that time, 100,000, you may be able to get a loan for $120,000. The loan borrowing was higher than the value. So when the housing market down, guess who's going to take on the loan? Nobody will pay for. With that kind of situation, they create a lot of domino effects, killing the banking industries. Along the way, there was discussions with the big bank and how they can help the country. And the big banks basically say there are too many small banks around. We got to close them down. And so, as a small bank, minority banks in this country, we have to figure a way to work with those regulators to survive or not to survive. There were many of them. Friday afternoon, a regulator walked in the bank, basically hand them a piece of paper and asking the bankers to lock the door without moving any of their own personal belongings, walk out the door and give them the key. And by Monday morning, a new bank's name come out in the front of the bank. There was many of those actual situations all over the United States, small town to big city, little bank to big banks. One of the most famous one in Washington State was called Washington Mutual. Washington Mutual practically became J.P. Morgan Chase overnight with no real money transfer of ownership. It's too much to talk about, but that could happen. Things could go extreme. But we, as a banker, will find a way to overcome those situations and get back to the basic. People is the basic. We got to take care of people, take care of hard-earned money, take care of the needs. How do we utilizing for those who has the money extra to help them to save, and for those who don't have the money, help them to borrow a little bit to help them to get starting something that they can call ownership. They can own their own company. They can eventually own their own home. They can take care of the family, and they can generate value to the society, and they will get income of the company they own, and they can sell the company and create retirements and step by step with that kind of sequences. So I enjoy that. I really enjoy helping people going through that cycle of life, and the formula is not that complicated. Well, except now we got to deal with the AI and all the other cybersecurity issues along the way. So love to learn the new things. Sorry, I can talk for hours about banking if you want me to. But
no, it did seem like what I'm hearing is that you did have to essentially go up like against these Goliaths. I think we heard from one of our last episodes when Kyle was sharing, it's just like you do seem like you're going up, with Goliaths, and how do you like approach those situations? And it sounded like, you had to kind of be scrappy in those situations, and I'm glad that you just had the same thing. I think the mindset here, like a lot of, and that's a lot of pressure too. I could only imagine, and just to have the mindset to like know that this is essentially just going to be a phase and something that we're gonna have to go through to see that light of tunnel. And it seems like this has been guiding you throughout your life. So it's awesome to see, and just I love how it shows up in your stories.
What stood out to me from what you just said is this idea of getting back to basics, of taking care of people. And I think it's really obvious from that perspective. Very, very, and this idea that, yes, this country has a lot of opportunities, but there is absolutely still inherent racism and inherent disproportionate power in those who have the power versus let's say community banks or immigrant banks. And so it's not always fair. It is not fair. The fairness has nothing to do with it, but it's a mindset. I really appreciate that about you. Yeah. Victor, you're next.
All right. So I think looking into 2025, what challenges what, I guess, defying the odds moments do you have in front of you that you have to face, that you are willing to share with us?
Sure. Well, as you can imagine now, we're going through a lot of transitions in 2024. The financial issues surrounding the country continues to be a huge problem that people don't even talk about anymore. And when we have 30, from 35 to 37 trillion dollars of national debt, clickings every day, when we have 1/6 of our tax revenue paying the interest alone to the national debt, our balances on our national budget and the ability to pay down the national debt is so big of a challenge to the country right now. Not a single politician dare to even bring it up part of the discussions of their campaign or their job, hoping someone else might solve the problem. And then simultaneously, we have multiple international conflicts around the world that potentially get bigger. No clear resolutions. 2025 will be a very challenging year. Because of that, for those who have the money, tend to really looking for a way to secure it and protect whatever they got left in terms of retirement purpose or covering the downfall of situation. They might need the money to survive. Their job may not be secure as much as it used to be. Some of the big jobs constantly being challenged, potentially got laid up. Company may need to be sold. It's not something you can do a 3 to 5 years plan easy. With that environment, you got to shrink, some way to shrink down to a secure area that you can protect yourself, your family, your community, and your local environment as much as possible. Otherwise, you can blow it away by national, international situation. The trade issues is constantly being challenged right now. The trading route around the country, which is the fundamental movements of products and money around the world, are being blockaded. Many of the canals are not functioning well because of war. The control of those shipping routes are being challenged because of individual countries trying to control their own territory. Things are getting more and more expensive every day. Inflation going to continue to hit us. Survival of basic of housing, it becomes so obvious and so ridiculous to see all our major city blanket with homeless people, drug addicts, so unfair, so difficult to discuss, and most government do not have clear plan to resolve the issues.
Right.
So
what is so 2025, so how are you thinking of defying the odds? These are some really tough national and international macro news, but
yes.
For you in particular, so how are you going to add your solutions to it? Like what is your approach to defying these odds?
We're very fortunate. Washington State remains to be a better part of the world. Seattle regions continue to be a little bit healthier than most other part of the country. I have faith in this region. I also really, really believe in the value of the diverse community who move to these regions and call this home. They come to this country or this part of the world, no matter in Bellevue or Redmonds or Newcastle and Rentons and Kent and all the way down to Tacoma, call this part of the home. They want to raise a family here. They want to have good school. They want to have safe environment. They're working hard for their job in small businesses. They just need to have a little bit help from the governments or the banks to help them to get this going, create job opportunities. So I have faith in that element. I have faith in that efforts. that I believe the bank will be very helpful to them if we can get it together with the new platform that they can sharing the value, they sharing their talents, they sharing the education, and help each others by combine the resources of financial elements to fund some of the projects, fund of the many of the small companies. It will help them to grow and continue to create jobs opportunities among the communities here.
Mm. So I think that's great. And so just briefly tell us about so that's kind of like what the mission is behind the United Diversity Bank, right?
Correct.
That's kind of your goal. So you're focusing on, so just give us just a very brief description. So who is your customer? How are you going? When is the opening? What's your plan for 2025 for that?
We At this point, we are submitting an application to Department of Financial Institution, Washington State. We're also obtaining security our charter approval by FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, to provide that they will provide the regulatory super oversight of the new bank. With their charter, we will get the insurance from the federal government on the deposit, and with that, we are allowed to raise our capital. We are funding the capital of this bank at $15 million to start with, at $15 a share, to many people who would like to be a part of this bank, sharing from ownership of as little as $22,500 at 1,500 shares, that they can be part of the shareholding of this bank, so they can enjoy the earning in the future, share the benefit of being shareholders. But more importantly, they becoming part of the institution, that they could be part of that by sharing their knowledge, their businesses, their DNA into this company to help their own community, or also taking advantage of other communities with a similar background. Um, I talked to some folks and asked me, Jesse, how come the Asian community are doing so well in a grocery store and restaurant? I said that kind of things that come down for generations of culture, but that doesn't mean you cannot do the same for the other culture as well. Um, you cannot tell the Asian company doing really well in the farm areas with the Latino community in Yakima. They're doing exceptionally well in good farmings, and you cannot tell the folks without the sporting background and do really well right now in the sporting industry with the Krakens and baseball, Mariners and Seahawks, and hopefully we're going to have a Sonic to come back here. And then you find many community have many different talents and ability. The other community just don't have it because of generations of education. We will
Mm.
feel the deficits by having a platform to sharing that kind of knowledge and skill set, and then collectively become a better financial community.
I
That
love it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's so good that you're really hyper focusing on the immigrant population and on filling in and creating financial opportunities where and kind of capitalizing on generational knowledge, right? And then creating build value out of this. And you're saying that this bank can be owned by anyone. It's a community bank, so do you need to be an accredited investor in order to buy into the $15 a share thing, or is there any limitations? And who do you, if you had this, you have this platform, there's your chance of kind of pitching the idea. And I'm sure we're gonna put in some kind of a link in the notes below so people can find you. But tell us a little bit more about that.
The banking law allowed the bank to raise money a little bit more a little bit different than typical securities investment. You do not have to be accredited investors to become a shareholder. Um, and then, yes, we do have a minimum and we have a maximum of shareholding of the bank. The maximum is 9.9% of the bank owned by a single individual. Um, the reason behind that, they do not want any particular single individual controlling the stability of the bank. And same thing, we will allow only so much money we can take on deposit, and there's a certain long amount of limitation as well. By doing that, we spread out our risk to many people as far as shareholdings, as far as deposit, as far as loan. So we become a community-based institution rather than a private company that do whatever they want to do. Um, so we work a little bit more conservative compared to the hard money lenders. There are many of them out there. We're a little bit more personal compared to the big banks, which based on oftentimes the decision makers out of state, based on credit score, credit certain programs, and we are a little bit more individual uh, based relationship and understanding. Our bankers are all local, seasoned, uh, and will help understand the local market for the local businesses. You're muted, Leo.
Um, yeah, I think I got it, but yeah, I appreciate that, Jesse, and just really enjoyed the conversation today. I think we do see a light at the end of this tunnel, at least for today. But some of the key takeaways that I've seen anyway was just the importance of relationships and community. That seemed like it was really just pivotal in your journey and just like something that you valued throughout your journey. So that's something that I wanted to know. Also, identity. You were coming to Atlanta known, trying to figure things out and trying to like fit in, but also like stand out. So I did like the sharing you did there, all the challenges that you had to overcome throughout your career. You didn't fold. You continued to push forward, and really love that. And then just to be adaptive. It seemed like there were a lot of things that you had no control over, but you learn how to adapt to the situation. And yeah, I really think that made you be so successful. And thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Leo? Was there any takeaways for you?
Yeah, especially at the end, I think that the idea that you're challenging your kind of coming full circle as an immigrant, coming to this country in 1971, and with $300, here's your opportunity to give back. You're actually bringing in other community members from Yakima to Kent, places where the big banks just don't go and they don't care, and then creating opportunities and building a bank that's built on community. I've just recently joined BECU and stepped away from all the main banks because they're just crooked. Like there's so many things that's going on with Wells Fargo and the Bank of America, and you keep seeing all of these things that are fueled by greed and not by taking care of people. And I see you doing exactly that. So I know we are out of time. We have so much more to talk that we could have talked about our Rotary experience and such, but we might have to get you back on our show to talk about that. But in the meantime, if you can close us out with one lesson that you want the listeners on how to overcome the odds, what would it be?
Stay with the dream, stay with the positive thinking, and never give up. Um, we are very fortunate to live in this country where a lot of good things going on despite the world in challenging mode. Um, but let's focus on the positive aspect and continues to be a place then we can enjoy it in our lifetime and many generations after us. And if we don't, the future is could be unspeakable. Um, so let's not allow the negative factors continues to influencing us or misleading us and guide us through the wrong track. Um, so believe in ourselves, believe in our family, believe our people in the community, and keep going forward.
All right. That sounds fantastic. Victor?
All right. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Jesse. It was a pleasure. Yeah, just learning from you in this conversation. I hope our our listeners were able to learn a thing or two as well.
I really
All right.
appreciate what you do. I really appreciate both of you for what you do in this podcast to fighting great people to be able to work together and communicate with each other. Communication is probably the most important first step that will bring people together. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Victor.
Hey, man. My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. So hold on, but we're going to stay backstage. We'll come back to you in a second. Hey, Victor. Yeah, another guest, right? Another amazing experience, right? What did you get out of this? What was the big thing for you?
I thought the thing that stood out to me the most was identity. Yeah, just the immigrant story was just so powerful, and just like the perseverance that he had throughout, throughout his career and his journey, in America and even before that. But trying to fit in a place where you don't know nothing about. Like you have to try to figure that out. And that resonated so well with me because I could totally relate that to my prison experience. Like I grew up with, growing up in a certain like culture and trying to like identify with that, but then moving and trying to like transform myself to a different individual, but don't know how to be that individual. So it totally related to me. I had to kind of re-identify myself as well when I was released from prison.
Yeah. The same for me. I think I'm constantly redefining myself and looking for opportunities. And I really love what got to me is that there are always a lot of challenges, but it's the mental, it's the mental plan, right? What Jesse really brings to me every single time is just this incredible power of positive thinking. And that the challenges are really the opportunities here and kind of working together with people, for people, always about people. It's not about things, it's not about ideas. It's not just about money, it's about people. And I just think that kind of passion, I'm just so glad that you and I have the opportunity to bring this to the forefront.
For sure.
So one of the things that we're going to start working on is building a membership, talking about community. Defying the Odds podcast is going to start building a membership group of those people who are listening, who want to defy their own odds and want to have community of people who want to defy the odds, right? So we're going to start building a community, a subscription model where people can actually get a lot of value out of this incredible movement that we are starting. So more on that later. Victor, it's always powerful to have you co-anchor with me. Let's take us out and let's keep going and keep defying
we're
the odds.
we're gonna continue defying the odds in 2025. Let's go 2025. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Defying the Odds.
We hope you found inspiration, insight, and maybe a new way of looking at the challenges in your own life.
Remember, defying the odds is a mindset, and you have what it takes to overcome anything.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.
Until next time, keep pushing forward, stay resilient, and never stop defying the odds.